I was just saying, since we last spoke to you, there's been a change of career just with the Cois Sionna Credit Union. How's that going for you?
Yeah, it's great. I'm just still in financial services, I suppose, but it's very different with the credit union. You know, it's much more member based and getting to know the locality and supporting it that way. Like, so still finding my feet here, getting to meet people. So yeah, it's a really exciting job though.
And I suppose we did bring you on to talk football, and we'll get straight back into it. And obviously in Division 2, we've seen 2 games for Limerick, and there's a big one to come this weekend. But first, before we get into Louth, I suppose the main takings from Derry and Dublin.
Yeah, didn't see the Derry match. Didn't make the trek up for once. Probably one of the first matches that I've missed for a few years. But just when people were at it, I suppose it was always going to be very, very tough. The toughest of starts. I know, listening to you speaking about it in recent weeks, it wasn't going to be any tougher than Derry away. To be honest, 50 minutes I was keeping an eye on the score. About 50 minutes got in it. It was 8 points to 4. Limerick were after getting a couple of scores in a row, and you're like, okay, this is promising now that if you can keep it at this now, it's probably acceptable. But then when Derry reeled off the last, I think it was 8 scores of the game and 16 points to 4, it's kind of a wake up call of okay, this is the big boys now, and this is the level you're playing against. If you're not on it every single kick out, every single ball, that this can happen. So while the result wasn't that surprising, I suppose you would have hoped the scoreline would have been a bit closer together. Then I went to the double match like a lot of people. I suppose first off, isn't it brilliant that these are the teams Limerick are playing now? I think that point shouldn't be missed, that it's not taken for granted that you're playing against this level, and it's significant. Limerick football playing in Division 2 against the likes of Dublin and Derry is just a massive thing, and to see all the supporters at the game last Sunday or Sunday week ago now, quite a lot from Dublin. They brought a lot of colour with them, and football-wise on the pitch, I suppose the first half was a bit of another wake-up call to the level you're at. If you're going to be honest with things, and I suppose we don't want to patronise lads, because look, we're always very positive about Limerick football and when they play well, and they have been playing so well over the last number of years. And as good as Dublin were in that first half, they didn't miss a beat. I think Limerick will have to say as well that they didn't really turn up for that game. They made life easier for Dublin. There was a bit of a shooting practice for them. Silly turnovers when we're in possession, didn't do enough on own kickouts. I suppose the physicality that Dublin brought, that takes a while to get used to as well. So first 25 minutes, you're looking at the scoreboard and you're saying, geez, this could be anything. I suppose the promising part of that was second half, Limerick beat Dublin in a competitive half of football by 4 points, which in and itself is not something that should be brushed under the carpet. That's a fair statement to make. You'd hope now that it was something that they could build on. You've got just coming back from injury, Hugh Burke making an appearance the last day. You've Brian Donovan, who should be close enough to getting game time coming up to the next couple of games. And it just makes a difference, because you've lost Josh Ryan from the start of the year. He's a big attacking threat in your forwards. You're starting the year without Hugh Burke. You're starting the year without Brian Donovan. So scores are going to be always at a premium. But getting these lads back and finding scores from elsewhere are going to be very important going forward.
Yeah, I think scoring was one of the big things that did improve from Derry going into Dublin. And you talk about it there. There's a couple of lads into the forward line. We have, Paul Maher is operating up there. Killian Ryan has been up there, and Cahill Downs. Did you see? I suppose you didn't see the first game, but from the Munster League, the McGrath Cup to Dublin, did you see an improvement in the attacking play?
Well, I suppose, yeah, you couldn't. The first half, the last day, you couldn't really see a huge improvement in it. A big thing, I suppose, for Limerick is that, and in Division 2, you're going to have to make the most of the ball you get. You're not going to afford to be getting possession. It's hard got, very hard got, whether it's your own kick out or the opposition kick out. It's very hard got. So you really have to maximise your scoring opportunities. I suppose with Cahill, he missed the last day through injury. He's a big presence in the full forward line. So I know against Derry, speaking to people who are at it, there wasn't much opportunity to get the ball into him, because Derry quite defensive when they don't have the ball, and they make life quite difficult. Because you're going to be going up to play Louth next Sunday, and that is exactly what they're going to do. Like, they're going to flood their own half. They're going to push up on your kick out. They're going to kick their own kick out long and work off of breaks off of that. So attacking wise, I suppose in the games to date, while against Cork in the McGrath Cup final, again, under the cosh for a lot of that, but found ways to get goals. I think goals will be a big thing for this group if we can get one or two, because you could even see the last day when now was fortuitous enough to goal against Dublin, but when it dropped to Hugh, he finished it very well, like Sol Dummy, and finished it well. You could see off of that the rest of the team took huge amount of momentum off of it. There was a buzz around afterwards. A goal is worth so much. I know last year the lads were putting up big scores in Division 3 points wise, so they didn't need the green flags as much, but you're just going to be playing against teams where you're not going to see as much as the ball, and you're going to have to maximize your scoring opportunities. So getting that ball in, again, it's hard. You've Adrian Enright, who would have been half forward last year. He's kind of finding himself in the full forward line now. He's getting used to it. You don't have your big target man like Josh. You're hoping maybe Cahill might be back the next day. Getting Hugh back is very important because he pulls the strings in that team. And to be honest, Brian Donovan was my player of the league last year for Limerick. He did an amount of unseen work. He kind of burst onto the scene the first match and got the 2 goals against Longford last year. But he does so much work around the place, both carrying and working off the ball. And if you can get someone like him, it's amazing when you put 1 or 2 extra pieces into a forward line, how much you can make everyone else tick that little bit better.
Yeah, it would be interesting to see if Brian is back this weekend and Cahill. But this weekend probably would have been, penciled in at the start of the league. Obviously, you don't go to lose any games, and Limerick would have been confident going to Derry and welcoming Dublin. But in a way, the league starts this weekend. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, look, to be honest with these things, the first 2 matches are going to, no matter what way it would have been a massive upset to go up to Derry and get Anton and Dublin at home. Is just, it's, you couldn't see Anton there. It was great to be so competitive in the second half. But yeah, there's mini groups in this league. There's seems to be Dublin, Derry, and Meath. The way they're going, they're flying at the minute. That they seem to be the top 3. You'd have thought Kildare would have been in that as well, but results would say maybe they're going to be pulled into the other 4 or 5. You've Clare, Cork looked very impressive last week, having lost the opening match, and then you've Louth and Limerick who came up for Division 3. So they would always be. The 2 teams would look at each other as these are the matches we have to win if we're going to stay in the division. So Louth having lost to Clare very unluckily the first day out. I know Clare kicked a lot of wides, but they had that match won in injury time just to see it out, and they couldn't get over the line. And again, the last day above an RD, they were ahead against Derry, 3 points into the second half, conceded goals and lost by 3. And I suppose if we're looking for form lines between the 2, Derry put Limerick to the sword fairly easily a week previous, and then Louth. I know you're playing Derry away, and Louth had Derry at home. But then Louth and Derry was much more competitive by the sounds of it. And when you're playing your home games, I suppose you have that little bit of an advantage. And going up to Louth is never easy. It certainly won't be easy at the weekend. And both teams will be targeting it differently. They kind of know each other well at this stage. They played twice last year, one in UL, which Limerick would feel they let slip very much so in a windy day in UL. And then in the league final, for a lot of that game, Limerick looked like, not that they were comfortable, but that they had within themselves to win the game, and Louth just showed that they had kind of developed a lot. They have their system, they sit in, they counter-attack you. They did that against Derry to effect last week as well. So if you're not ready for that, kind of move it around and try and force things against them, and they catch you in the break, you're going to be in trouble the next day. Limerick really need to mind the ball, because there's few teams as well set up as Mickey Hart's teams, and to be fair to them, when they do break, they break in numbers, and that's how they got their goal against Limerick in the league final. You had Liam Jackson getting up the field to score, and he scored again last week. So I know Kieran Byrne is out for the year. He's a big loss for him. He scored 4 points in the league final last year, and he's a big loss for the year for them. But they still have Sam Mulroy, Conor Grimes, Tom Jackson. They're playing at home in front of their supporters, so it'll be a big ask for Limerick.
I suppose you won a share of promotions when you were playing with Limerick. The team that you went up with, which would be for Louth for this Limerick team, did you kind of have that game targeted that that's one that you have to be winning, which would be the case for Limerick this weekend?
Yeah, look, you wouldn't ever target it, but to be honest, every day you go as a player, you're going out to perform. So as much as we're sitting here saying Dublin and Derry were free swings, I'm sure the players weren't thinking that way. So the managements, I'm sure, they'd sit down and go, okay, we can go after these games now, and these are the games we're really going to target. Now, I don't know if that's what Ray Dempsey and his management have been doing, but you would hope that they would have some tape now on Louth, that they've seen what they do. they're going to be the same as last year. I know they have had an issue with their goalkeeper in recent times, so James Califf, who was in goals last year, hasn't really been in the panel yet this year for different reasons. The goalkeeper who started their first game has now left the panel, and they've got a Peter McStravick in goals last week, who'd never played in goals before for his club or county, and seemingly has a massive kick at the ball. So it sounds like Louth are going along on the kickouts. It's an area that Limerick haven't been that strong on. They don't have the Tommy Childs anymore. They don't have Dara Trace either taking a break or moved on. Don't have your John Galvins, your Jim Donovans. So you can't grow these players overnight. Carl Downs maybe could do a job out there. So it's something they'll have to deal with. If they can get the kick out is massive in football. We're talking about targeting games. It's actually targeting the teams you're playing, what they do well, and what they use as their weapons. And Louth definitely use their weapon as their kick out. They're more than happy to kick it long. Goalkeeper has a big kick at the ball and work off of that and get scoring chances off it. But the reality is, if Limerick can get in top there, they're the ones that are going to be doing the attacking. So while I know the question was about targeting wins, I think really Limerick will be looking at targeting areas against Louth where they can make hay.
Lovely. Matt, I'll throw it over to you for a minute.
Yeah, I agree totally there with Pa's fine summation of what has happened to date and where we're at. I suppose we tend to forget very easily that, the short spell of the transition from Division 4 football to 2 football, very, very short. And perhaps in terms of preparation and readiness for Division 2 football, maybe an extra year or two in Division 3 may have benefited. Pa's right and says that there couldn't be any realistic expectation of getting anything from the first 2 games. And I suppose when when the Limerick management sat down at the beginning of the year, first of all, the first goal was survival and consolidation. And any of that was unlikely to come from the games against either Derry or Dublin. Like the fixture scheduling was very, very unkind in many ways. But look, maybe it allows Limerick now to have sole focus on the next 5 games. And yes, Louth is one of the games that you would focus on, as possibly getting a win, because you'll need a minimum of 2 wins, possibly 3 wins, to survive in the division. Now, our recent record against Louth Pa, am I right in saying that the last time we played Louth in Louth, Limerick won in Drogheda? You were probably playing.
That would have been, yeah. I've happy memories of playing in Drogheda. It's the only time I ever scored goals. So I scored the last time we played there. I was playing centre forward for my sins that year. So I got a goal and we won. Yeah, we stayed up the last day of the league. Was it back in 2000, maybe 14 or 15? One of those years, yeah. But it was always a tough place to go to Louth. Yes, yeah. That was it, yeah. So it's always a tough away trip to Louth, and they've always, do you know what they have? They have brilliant footballers. They always have brilliant, actual good ballers, players that are well able to play football, and they like to play football. Now, I suppose Mickey has brought a bit of defensive structure to what they do, a bit of structure to the way they move, and they're coupling that in with their good football, and it's the reason why they've moved up the divisions and have been so competitive in Championship and Division 2 so far this year.
I have a picture there of you scoring that goal, Pa. I remember it well. And there's Danny celebrating and Ian Ryan, but
that's definitely my screen.
Yeah, obviously it'll be a huge challenge for Limerick this weekend, and we've talked about that game in depth. Before you leave us, Pa, there's obviously a huge game for Limerick football tonight in the Sigerson Cup final, and I know you've done a share of work in UL with the football teams, and even though there's only a couple of lads on the squad, John Hayes has been starting regularly and Ronan McGillicuddy is the backup keeper, it's still all beneficial for Limerick football, especially with Declan Bruder in charge. Yeah,
and you've Declan, you've Gerard O'Connor from Abbeyfield is in the background there. You've the 2 Levins who've been there with Declan for his time. I think could be his 4th year in with UL, but yeah, look, we're washed with Limerick players. You've John from St. Kieran's, who I would hope that he would be brought into the senior setup as soon as the Sigerson is finished, because his line of development, even with UL this year, he was not getting much game time at the start. came on in games, scored a point, came on another game, scored another point, started the semi-final, which shows the faith now that they have in him, because the standard of player that they have inside in the college is very good. I suppose you mentioned about the freshers. You get to see that when you're working with the first years, and you will. When I was in college, I knew something that they promoted too well, or that they pushed too hard. That has changed. That has gone completely 180 now. The college is very much promoting football. You can see by the standard of players who are coming through. I think Clare have 7 involved in the panel, which is very strong for Colin Collins and them. And look, it's brilliant when it's on your doorstep, because you have so many Limerick people going to college, and you will. And I know with the freshers, you'll often have 4 or 5 Limerick lads involved, and you're just trying to, I suppose, expose them to the high standard of player that they're dealing with. The Kerry lads, the Cork lads, Mayo lads, Galway, they're from all over. And it's such a question raised recently, but the players really buy into it. Like, they do try and manage as much as possible with their counties, but they do treat the games and the trainings as seriously as they would as if they were with their counties. And the losses are felt as deep. The wins are celebrated more nearly because you have the college outlets to go out afterwards. But yeah, the lads tonight have a great opportunity. I really think they're in a strong position. They've come through some big matches. They lost the penalty shootout to TUD. They had a big win above in Galway and in the extra time. The last night against DCU, they got the goals. They're good to find the back of the net. And the thing they have is they don't rely on anyone. I know they had David Clifford last year, and it was such a big weapon to have. But they don't rely on one person. Kieran Downs is scoring. Aaron Griffin was scoring the last day. You've McMahon. You've Paul Keeney from Leitrim. You've John scoring. You've McLaughlin from Mayo coming up from half-back. So you've serious weapons. And look, UCC, anytime they're going to be in a final, they're going to be very hard beat, especially with Billy Morgan on the sidelines. They'll have every tactic and cupid they can muster. But it's great for Limerick College. Like you said, it's not a wash with Limerick people, but you've Ronan from Ungrit and you've John from St. Kieran's, and it's just fantastic. There aren't too many Sigerson medals going around Limerick.
Yeah, there definitely is. But Pa, you've been very generous with your time there. I'll let you go back to the rest of your lunch, and a huge thank you to the Cois Sionna Credit Union, and I'm sure we'll talk to you again soon. So thank you, Pa.
Thanks, lads. Nice to talk to you always.
Lovely.
Yeah.